But one of the lessons that emerges quickly when you spend time looking at this history of the violent ultra-right, not just internationally, but here in the United States, one of the things that just comes home again and again is that fascist, violent, authoritarian messaging very, very, very often comes with a big heaping helping of anti-Semitism. People who want to throw a government by force, people who want to get rid of democratically elected leaders and instead install some leader using violence, whipping people up toward believing that there's no political solution, that there has to be violence instead, that there are enemies who have infiltrated the country, and so the whole thing needs to be burned down and cleansed and started over this time with us in charge. And that whole line of argument, that whole form of insidious messaging depends on there being an other, right? Some sort of very powerful cabal that's secretly in charge and pulling all the strings, and they need to be rooted out. Again and again and again, over time and in lots of different countries, but including in ours, that is core to fascist and authoritarian messaging. And Jewish people are perennially targeted, scapegoated, and insinuated against by people who are making those kinds of arguments. It happens over and over again around the world and in our history, too, even though we don't often like to remember it happening here. We like to look back at the late 30s and the 40s and remember that we were the country that joined the fight against Hitler and stopped what he was doing. Right? That's true. And also, there's this truth is stranger than fiction, dark history of the forces in our country who wanted us either not to fight Germany, or if we were going to fight, they wanted us to fight on Hitler's side. This is all imagery from the United States that we're showing here on the screen right now. There were powerful, well-connected, and indeed well-armed forces in the United States in the lead up to World War II who wanted us fighting on Hitler's side because of what Hitler was saying about Jewish people and what he was doing to Jewish people. We had an ultra-right movement here in America that sided with that 85 years ago. And the fight against them back then, I think, is fascinating. And that's what I've been working on with this podcast. I think that there's a lot for us to learn from the Americans who went before us who had to fight against that. But if you study this stuff in history, right, I mean, it's almost unbelievable that it happened at all when it happened. But then when you're in the middle of studying that history, you have news cycles like the one we're in right now, and it feels all the more impossible that this is what's happening right now. I mean, in our current news cycle right now, you've got the immediate former president of the United States putting out a statement on social media that's some kind of ominous, vague warning for Americans who are Jewish, saying Jews need to be more appreciative of him. Jews need to, quote, get their act together. He says, quote, before it's too late. Nobody knows what he's talking about or what he's threatening American Jews with here, but this is really happening now. We're 3 weeks out from the next election after the last one, when he sent an armed mob of his supporters to try to violently overthrow the government and stop the transfer of power and make him leader by force of arms. Last week, the Republican Party posted this on social media. Kanye, Elon, Trump. The latter, of course, is the guy who just posted the Jews better get their act together message. The former is the guy who just posted that while he was sleepy right this second, as soon as he woke up, he was going to go DEFCON 3 on Jewish people. The middle guy in that triad is the one who has reportedly been in direct contact with the fascist dictator in Russia who's currently waging war on Ukraine. He's the guy who's recently been promoting an appeasement plan to get Western countries to back off and just let the Russian dictator keep whatever parts of other countries he wants to invade and occupy, and we should leave him alone to do it. So the House Republican tweet naming those three guys as the holy trinity of the Republican Party right now, Kanye, Elon, Trump, that's still up. With the before it's too late threat that the Jews need to get their act together, with the going DEFCON 3 on Jewish people threat, and also with the guy in touch with Putin trying to get everybody else to back off and let him invade who he wants. That's still up from an official Republican Party Twitter account. And all of this is, it is a good reminder that anti-Semitism and authoritarianism very, very, very often go together. It is also a reminder that neither of these things are fights that are consigned to history. I mean, our generation gets our turn in the barrel with these things now. Whatever you might have admired about Americans in the past who confronted these things in the past, well, now's your chance to emulate what they did that you think was right. Whatever you might have resented or been disappointed in thinking about Americans in the past who didn't rise to the occasion, who stuck their heads in the sand, who pretended it wasn't happening, who let it slide. Well, now's your chance to not emulate them. Because this is our turn with this stuff.